Guild Wars 2 has an add-on problem. And that's not because it has a lot of them, but because a lot of them are technically hacks. Let's talk about it. Subscribe to the channel for more content of this. Go to my Ko if you want to support me. And go check Nike's video on this, as he's the one that brought it up in the first place, and nobody believes him for some reason. So let's talk about that. This whole thing started with Nike's video about how certain hacks are actually appearing in the game that are way too complex, and they can do full rotations and much more that I'm not gonna mention in this video because I don't want to give it any sort of publicity. But a lot of people didn't believe him, so and after making my own investigation that, well, I can't really, share because I don't want you guys to fucking start looking for stuff. It is true, and I think that's the biggest reason why I want to make this video in the first place, to give a second, a shout out to something that really is happening, and it is a problem for Guild Wars 2. Also, I wanted to be very clear. I don't think using re-effect or DPS, DRF, is actually bad, and I don't think you're actually gonna get banned for using it. The problem here is that ANET might not be able to ban the people that are using hacks because they don't want to end up banning other people, or it's going to be very hard for them to tell in between, right? I'm not saying like, oh, you shouldn't use add-ons. I think these add-ons are great, right? But I do think ANET has to find a way to actually fix this so they can actually tell in between each other and make it a bit more official, because right now it's kind of the Wild West, and it's just not good, it's not efficient, it's not clean, it's just blech. So. And even though this has been, and this comment actually is kind of right, hacks have been rampant since the early years of Guild Wars 2, the difference is that now they're becoming way more sophisticated. They're becoming more easy to use, they're becoming way less easier to detect, and even though ANET is taking their part into trying to ban people that actually use this, it could get out of hand very easily. Because not also that is happening, but Guild Wars 2 add-ons that we use that are kind of intertwining right now. Guild Wars, for example, we have RDPS, and ANET knows about RDPS. They've always been using it a lot of years, because having a DPS meter in your MMO, it is very important. And not only that, but because we have boons and stuff like this, now we want to keep track of when how many do we have in certain in PvE content or whatever. It is very useful to have this add-on. But the problem is that this add-on, it's in some ways a hack, right? It reads memory from the game, something that in other MMOs would not actually be permitted. Definitely wouldn't be in WoW. An anti-cheat would their anti-cheat would probably prevent it from using it, right? Now, there's also other add-ons that people use, and definitely I use, like re-effect, that is very useful because it shows the boost that you have in a better place in your screen. Because having boons right here on this little spot, it's just too small. It's in the bottom. It's just hard to tell, right? But instead, having re-effect to do it for you, and having these effects right here, so you can actually check them when they appear, having different traits that appear randomly in different accounts, be close to your eyesight, to your character, so you can see them and how much they have left on them, is very useful. And honestly, the fact that we have played this game without this for a long time is very questionable, and it very much sucks that in some ways you're kind of going against US for something that should be in the game, right? And yeah, ANET should put this in the game right now, but that's not where we're at, right? Also things like DRF that I actually have right here as well. You see DRF, there you go. That tracks the gold per hour that and every item you actually get through a session of gameplay is very nice in order to compare different activities for you. But all of these add-ons that we require, like re-effect, like DRF, like RDPS, are the same types of programs that you would see in a hack, right? So what can we do about that? How can ArenaNet tell in between something we need as players and something that hackers are using to, automate stuff, to fly hack under the maps to collect these different items or do map completion, right? All of these issues that we've had for a while can become way more rampant when all the items that we are using as players are actually gonna be the same type of programs that they would use, just for different reasons, right? And this is something ArenaNet is gonna have to deal with, because Guild Wars 2 is a game that requires add-ons. There's a lot of very complicated things that, we cannot actually use, or it's very annoying to use without an add-on, right? And Bleach HUD is something that actually works pretty well, but it cannot do a lot because the API is very old and it doesn't refresh too much. And this is the way that actually WoW does it. You know, they have a very strong API that permits the players to have a lot of information and then use that information instantly into add-ons that will not read memory, but instead just use the API, right? The problem is that in Guild Wars 2, the API is so slow that it will take you like 5 minutes to actually for it to actually update and you actually being able to use most of the add-ons, right? It's also important to say that the API, if you guys don't know what it is essentially the way that the game and servers give information to you, the player, you know, about your character, to your computer, to your network, in order for add-ons to work, in order for things like Guild Wars 2 efficiency to work and connect, you know, their features with the with your character and your account. Something like Mystic Crafting. It's a great add-on. Let's say that I'm actually crafting a Ring Claw, and this is all the items I need. I finish my Transcendent Crystal, for example. Even though I did, right? I finished my Transcendent Crystal. It will not tell me that it's finished here until 5 minutes later, right? Same thing applies for my item search. For example, let's say that I have an item that I moved and I forgot that I moved it and I just did it in 5 minutes and I search for it. It will not tell me where it is until the API gets refreshed. And there's many add-ons like this that just become obsolete when you have to wait 5 minutes for it, right? Guild Wars, like the DRF, the gold tracker that I have, would not actually be needed if it actually updated the API updated instantly. But instead, I have to, you know, actually use something else that technically is, you know, in some ways a hack because it's reading memory. You also cannot in any way, shape or form create an RDPS out of the API or check if your group has enough boons or if you're giving enough boons to yourself. Anything like this is out of the question with the current API that we have. So what can we do? Of course, Nike's idea was to actually change the API, you know, from ANET to actually update it in a very significant manner for all these issues to not happen, right? That definitely would require a good amount of effort from ArenaNet, and of course a lot of time, but it probably is a good idea. Now, for example, we talked about WoW. WoW not only has that great API, but they also have an anti-cheat. And that's the next one, having an anti-cheat. An anti-cheat that, you know, prevents people, you know, bad actors to actually have DLLs, you know, hacks, you know, that can, that are not official from the game and Arena does not recognize into you putting them in the game, right? Now, they probably could have some sort of like, hey, RTPS is allowed. You know, Nexus and all the add-ons that are inside of Nexus are allowed. Right? Because Inet talks to the developers of Nexus, and hey, we know that those guys wouldn't do something bad for the game. So as long as they come through that, we're good, right? And that could be definitely a good solution. Maybe a solution of both. Maybe updating the API a little bit. Maybe talking to the developers of these add-ons as well. A little bit of both could definitely work. We also have the other option, which is making it manually. This is what Final Fantasy does, but you know, and even though it does work, where's the comment that I had? There we go. There's someone talking about this in this thread. Even though this actually does work, and people actually get banned for using hacks like, you know, rotation hacks or whatever, or you know, hacks that make you move around in specifically the way that you have to move in order to not die to one boss. It is hard to do because they need manual developers to check logs, to check chats, to check the actual people's computer to see if they're using different processes. This will require a good amount of money in terms and manpower from ArenaNet. And can they actually realistically do this? Fuck, even Final Fantasy XIV has a lot of issues even with that, right? So is this realistic? Probably not. Maybe a combination of all of them for sure, but it seems like to be that I'm not sure if this one would work, specifically because we already have problems with bots and stuff. And even though the bot fix that we've gotten last week was definitely useful, it probably wouldn't require way more for this specific problem, right? Now, we do know that ArenaNet is indeed capable of checking you and me and everyone else's computers if they suspect you to be using an exe that is interacting with Guild Wars 2. You can see the screenshot in the terms of service as well. You can see it right here. We may but have no obligation to monitor the operation of the services. Monitoring includes, but is not limited to, monitoring communication interfaces, storage devices, or CPU processes related to hardware you use with their services. You acknowledge that we may undertake foregoing monitoring, and they may communicate any information between hardware you use with the services. So it is essentially, we know that this is possible, and they could definitely do this, but will this work? Will this be enough? I don't actually know. But the truth is, in my opinion, and after seeing a lot of, and you know, I can't really talk about a lot of this other stuff because I don't want you guys searching around and checking different hacks or whatever. And you will, you know, hey, you will get banned, so don't worry about that. But I'm not gonna start doing that. But the truth is, there are a good amount of, you know, things that people do, hacks that people do that are not positive for the game. And considering all this intermingling of add-ons that we use and add-ons that they, or not add-ons, but hacks that they would use, it really scares me for the future of Guild Wars 2. It doesn't scare me in the way that it's gonna happen right now, but if ArenaNet don't start actually paying attention to this and finding a solution for it very soon, it might be too late. Because yeah, it's easy to say like, well, it's not happening right now, so who cares? But what if it happens one day? And well, ArenaNet's not prepared. And their solution that they need to do will require months of developing to actually do something. What happens then, right? It's not a good thing, and I really want to, because people, I really want to support Nike on this, because I know a lot of people don't like him because he's a troll and blah blah blah. I get it, but just because that's what he is doesn't mean that he's not right about this one, and he is. He is right. There is a problem, and Arena needs to fix it. And if they don't do it soon, and if they don't start working on it soon, it might be too late. But tell me what you guys think. Tell me if you guys think I'm wrong. Tell me if you think that Nike is wrong. Tell me whatever. And thank you very much for watching. See you guys around. I love you all. Bye. Bye.